This is part two of my series on why I am totally convinced that the Bible is God's Word and nothing else. And the way this argument goes is a religion should be given to us by God rather than man made so that it's trustworthy and so that it's constant and not ever changing based on the culture and time period of world history. So, the religion has to be ancient rather than new, simply because we've been here for a long while, and the preserved messages of that religion have to answer the question of who is God, and then the following essential questions of life that include why was the world created, why were people created, what went wrong with the world and its people, what is right and wrong, as it pertains to how we human beings are supposed to act toward God and then toward each other. How can everything that is wrong with the world and its people be corrected? What does the future hold? And finally, what do we have to look forward to in the afterlife? It is my argument that Christianity does a far better job of answering these questions because Christianity is based on the Bible, and the Bible gives the most compelling and in depth presentation of who God is, what His will is, how He's acting throughout history and presently to bring that will about, how mankind should respond, how mankind has responded and is responding, and why it is that way, and finally, how this all wraps up. So let's start with the first question of who is God. The Bible reveals in the Old and New Testament that the attributes of God include, but are not limited to, everlasting, self sufficient, spirit, transcendent, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, sovereign, immutable, and triune, meaning there's three persons in the one entity of God. And I intend to go more in depth on my explanation of that later. The character traits of God, as revealed in the Old Testament and New Testament, include, but are not limited to, loving, righteous, merciful, gracious, condescending, relational, salvific, jealous, inclusive, and faithful/true. All of these attributes and character traits coexist and are demonstrated in perfect harmony to reveal God's holiness and ensure that His plan for His creation is fulfilled despite all apparent opposition. Now, to explain that plan, in summary, God created the world and people so that mankind, made in His image, could see and get to know Him through His main three sources of revelation, that is, nature, His written and preserved revelation, that I'm arguing is the Bible, and finally, and most importantly, the incarnation of His Holy Son, Jesus Christ, who came from heaven to earth to provide people from all over the world the way to have a loving relationship with God forever, where we enjoy Him and respond to Him with our praise and love. And that takes us to the next issue. What is morally right and wrong? The Bible defines right and wrong by God's revealed commandments, which are summed up in that we are to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love our neighbors as ourselves, meaning love them with the respect they deserve as fellow human beings. To love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength is basically what it means to worship. And the way that we worship God is by devoting our entire existence to getting to know Him, trust Him, love Him, and enjoy Him above all other people and things, and then obey Him as it pertains to how we are to treat others so that they can get to know and love and trust and obey Him. And when we as human beings devote our time and our energy and our hearts to desiring and pursuing other things besides worshiping God, we fail to fulfill our God given purpose. And when we fail to fulfill our God given purpose, we fall short of God's glory, meaning we don't appreciate God's glory the way we should, and we rebel against it. And that rebellion is called sin. And sin is what is ultimately wrong with the world. Genesis chapter 3 tells us the story of how sin entered the world when the first man that was created by God rebelled against God when he ate fruit from the tree called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, when his wife was tempted by the enemy of mankind, the serpent, who told her that she could be like God and independent of God, and that she wouldn't die like God said that human beings would if she ate from the tree. She ate from the tree, felt temptation, and then she gave fruit to her husband Adam, the first man, and he ate from the tree. And when he ate from the tree, in direct violation to God's law, he and his wife were immediately corrupted by sin and became the slaves of the one whom they obeyed, which was the serpent. And that slavery to the serpent, who is the devil, is why sin corrupts every human being and why the world is under judgment and is receiving various forms of suffering the more we rebel against God, our Creator. Now, there's a lot of mystery and complexity about the questions: where did the serpent even come from? Why God created this tree in the first place? Why he allowed mankind to eat from the tree when he could have intervened, and so forth. But the Bible goes into in-depth explanation about that so that we know that this was no accident and God allowed this for the purpose of demonstrating to us who he is to a greater degree than if there was no sin, and receiving from us greater praise, thanksgiving, love, and glory for having to save us, as opposed to never having to save us and everything remaining perfect from the beginning. God's ultimate perfect purpose from the beginning was fall, salvation, and recreation. And that brings us to what God is doing to make everything right again.